If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Elite Publishing Podcast. We are here with superstar author Stephanie Chung. She is the author of Ally Leadership, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. She is an amazing author. Can't wait to hear your story. Stephanie, welcome and thanks for coming to our podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, tell us just a short version of your background and why it led you to wanting to write a book.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I come from aviation. I started off working, very first job I ever had. Well, first I got to start with, I was a military brat. So my dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up around planes my whole life. That then gave me the desire to want to be in aviation. So I was that kid, Melanie, that knew exactly what I wanted to do at a very early age.
Yeah.
So I ended up working for the airlines, then got recruited into private aviation. And, some of my, I guess, accomplishments from a private aviation perspective, first Black person in U.S. history to ever run and lead a major private aviation company. And then I became a chief growth officer. I was an officer of a publicly held private aviation company. And I've just actually loved the journey. I've been in aviation in some shape, form, or format in the past 40 years.
Awesome. So why did you decide to write a book now?
Well, actually, it's funny. I am a professional speaker, and I want my speakers bureau is actually the one that suggested that I write a book. They're like, "Hey, when people are asking to hire you, a lot of times they're asking, does she have a book?" Which at the time I didn't. So that was the first seed that was planted at about writing a book, which was great, right?
Yeah.
So I really had to think about, what is the book that I actually want to write? As a professional speaker, I speak on 3 different subjects. So I speak on leadership, sales, and female power.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore it's like, where do I write this book and how do I write it? But what I was really drawn to was the leadership side of the house,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, I'm a leader, right? I'm a board
Yeah.
member. I've been in the C-suite. I was an officer of a publicly held company. I am in leadership, in marketplace. And then of course, just, I'm also in leadership in some other areas and nonprofits and what. And so leadership, I know, is a hard job these days. It is really tough. There's so much going on. And so I have so much admiration for leaders. And I'm right in the thick of it, right there with them. So that was really what I decided to do, was to write a book that I thought would be really valuable for leaders based on my experience and the things that I've learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And then in hopes that it would be a blessing for other leaders out there, because I know every day they're doing literally heroic exercises. So I wanted to be able to offer some support for leaders.
And I love that too, because you are already a speaker. You're with the Washington Speakers Bureau, and it just says, people come to us all the time, hey, I want to be a speaker. But you're saying, even though you are a speaker, you need to have a book. So whether you want to be a speaker or you're a speaker already, you need to have a book, it sounds like to me.
Yeah, well, what I would say is I found out, and this was, again, credit to my speakers bureau that was really educating me on this,
Mm-hmm.
is, not everybody, because of the type of speaking that I do, I'm usually hired by Fortune 500 accountants speak. Very
Yeah.
rarely am I very rarely do I speak where there's public type of, well, most of my clients are Fortune 500 clients. And so what that means, though, is that they're hearing me speak because they're paying to have me come and speak
Yeah.
to their employees, so that their employees can be developed and whatnot. But the regular public doesn't necessarily have access to hear me speak. That's where books come in, right? So
Yeah.
if I am, it's great for those that are hiring me, because it's an additional thing that they can, send their people home with. So they've heard me speak. And then if they want more, they can actually go read the book. But if you don't have the opportunity to hear me speak, then what the book does is allows me to be able to, serve those customers, my followers on, any of the social media handlings, or whenever I'm doing public, any kind of media interviews. So people who may want to hear more from me, but may not hear me speak, that's where
Yeah.
the book really comes into play.
And I think the book also opens the door for more corporations when they see the book to hire you to speak. So it opens more doors and those opportunities as well. Plus the book sales,
Yeah.
that gives you something else, that you can incorporate into your merchandise, your things that you have, your assets and things like that. So I want to walk through a little bit of how you wrote the book. So many people, it's this big giant thing and, figuring out how to write it. Some people say, well, I'm better in the morning. How do you discipline yourself? And I just want kudos. You are so disciplined. Love working with you because you're like, just give me when I have to have it done. I'm going to have it done. And so how do you get that discipline to do that and walk us from the VIP day you did with us and then through the process of getting the rough manuscript done?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, and everybody's different, right? Die by dates and deliverables, right? I have to know what's due by when from, what exactly is expected. And the reason why that's important is because I've got so many other things going on, right? I'm a speaker. Now I'm an author, but I'm also a board member. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I've got my own business I've got to run. So I've got a lot of things going on. And I think I'm no different than probably most of your clients or prospects.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, being able to look at how am I going to roll this into my everyday daily disciplines
Mm-hmm.
because of all the different things that we've got going on. So I think every writer is probably different, but some of the advice that I had gotten from people who have written books were like, hey, you know what, Steph, some people can do it every single day. You carve out a couple of hours and you write them. Some people are more like, let me just go away for a couple of days,
Yeah.
right? And kind of get my outline all figured out. And so there's no real right or wrong way to do it. I have found that it really depends on the person. What worked for me
Mm-hmm.
was to go away. I went away for 5 days at the very beginning, spent some time by myself just so I could clear my head and think about if I wanted to read a book as a leader, what would I want this book to tell me? What were the things that would be instrumental for me,
Mm-hmm.
on my journey as well? And that's what I did. I went away and came back with at least an outline of this is really how I want to see this structured. And then from there, it's just a matter of writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I really appreciated about working with you all is the VIP day was super helpful because it allowed me just to get clear. And, I think with all of us, again, we've all got a lot of things going on. It's just mental clarity is a great place to start
Mm-hmm.
because though I said I speak on 3 different subjects. At the beginning, I wanted my book to have 3 different pieces. Do you remember
Yes.
that? We had this long discussion.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, I think maybe it's just 3 different books,
Yeah.
right? And so, but that kind of mental clarity in working with people who are experts in their field so they can pull it all out of you was hugely, just it was so effective for me and so helpful for me. And that way, when it came time to start writing, I could just take it from my head and put it on paper. And that's the other thing I would say is, the book coach that I had working with, through you all is really helpful at the beginning because at the beginning, I think if you've never written a book before, which I hadn't, and probably a lot of your listeners may be in that boat as well, is you feel like you've got to write this perfect book or you feel like you don't have a book in you.
Yeah.
So either way, it was a process. And now, it's great because I can actually, we're at that stage where I can read the manuscript and be really proud of the work and be so surprised that, oh my God, this is from me. Like this is a book I would read, I would write, I would buy, I would give it to my team. I mean, it's a really good book. And I say that not because of anything with me, but because of the guidance that I was given by working with Elite as well, that you guys were able to help pull out the things that
Yeah.
needed to come out. And let's like put aside the stuff that's just like, okay, it's interesting, but it's a little bit
Yes.
noisy, right? So I think for most people who are looking to go on this book journey, writing a book is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So let's be honest with that. But it's so fulfilling and so rewarding. And the thing that I like about the way that I did it, because I had other ways to do it, the way that I did it, it's like I'd much rather do it this way because I was able to learn in the process things that I probably wouldn't have learned had I hired a ghostwriter or just let publishing company publish me, right? And so all of that, there's nothing wrong with those ways to do it, but the way that I did it by working with Elite, I'm actually really proud of it because I learned a lot I wouldn't have learned necessarily going the traditional route.
And, I want to dive into that a little bit of really the process of writing a book. It's a self-discovery of yourself,
Yeah.
and you're really having to dive deep and think about things. I tell people, it's almost like you're doing a business analogy or business coaching for yourself because you're having to answer questions and say, well, what really is my 1 to 60 rule? What is my philosophy on leadership? And you're having to stop. Tell us like some of the aha moments maybe that you had going through this process of that you had self-development during the process.
Oh, I love that question because you're right. I think that was the biggest aha, right?
Hmm.
Is as most of the people who are writing the book are probably executives or have established a certain level in their career, and so we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of experience, but it's kind of all just jumbled in there, right? Because
Yeah.
we're just every day we're attacking what we need to get done, and so we've not necessarily stopped and I won't even say smell the roses, just kind of stop and step back for a second.
Yeah.
And that's what I found the book allowed me to do is I had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of stories, but they were either A, just jumbled in there or
Hmm.
B, suppressed. Right. And so when you start to write, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember when this happened or when that happened.
Yeah.
And then you've got to pull that information forward. More importantly, back to your point of the self discovery, is you have to actually tap back into those emotions that you had at the
Hmm.
time. And that was the biggest piece as well, because a lot of times you're moving so fast and furious that
Hmm.
you're like you don't have time to tap into those emotions because the next fire needs to be put out, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so when you're writing the book, it allows you to kind of step back and to pull those emotions forward and then to remember it in great detail so that you can write it in great detail so that your reader can go along the journey with you. So that was really an interesting time for me. And I loved it. And that's probably one of the things I loved the most, though I said it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It really also was one of the most or the most rewarding thing I've done because I've been able to remember, oh, yes, I remember feeling that way. But then we did this. And then I felt that way. And then I
Yeah.
could reflect on, oh, man, here's what the outcome was. And here's how other people were affected. And so all of that is just incredibly rewarding. And I don't think, if I listen, I'm not in your business, Melanie, but I would certainly be pushing that a lot more to prospective authors like myself because that alone is worth its weight in gold, right? Regardless
Yeah.
of whatever the book goes through, at least when you come out of that, you're a better person for it because you can reflect on all the incredible things that you did do, results that you did get, and the lives that you did impact. And I think that alone is very rewarding because again, I think we're all running fast and furious no matter who you are, everybody's busy. And so to be able to stop and spend some months reflecting that and then to be able to put that on paper so that it can help other people, that's incredibly rewarding. And that alone is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's almost like you come out, you were an expert when you walked in, but then you come out
Mhm.
and you're just at this other level. I don't know how to describe
Yes.
it. It's a humble level, but it's like you
Mhm.
remembered all the things that you forgot, that you knew.
Right.
You're like, oh my gosh, I remember all these things that I know. I didn't realize I knew all this stuff because you're having to pull it
Yeah.
back up into the forefront of your brain. And you've just, like, if
Mhm.
you're a leader, you've now elevated your leadership level internally. You even feel more
That's right.
confident, don't you think? Do you feel more even
Yeah.
confident?
Yeah, I agree with you that you're leveling up internally because when you think about it, right, you're already, you're able to stop, reflect, and look back, and then see all the things that you've done, and put it in such a way that you can hopefully help other people. But it does give you actually confidence is a very good word. I would say it does give you a confidence, right,
Mm,
where you're like, okay, I am that, I'm good, right, like I survived, and I still have a story to tell about it
yeah.
and therefore you're really super. I struggle with the word I'm saying confidence because I can't find another
Yeah,
word to
there's
say,
something better
but
better word for
there's
it. Yeah.
something better than confidence,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to give because listen, I don't fall short on confidence,
I
right?
know. I was gonna say
So
you're already at a
but
10
yeah,
for confidence.
yeah,
But
I'm
yeah.
pretty already, yeah, exactly, because I've already made history, okay,
Yeah.
Melanie, but it does take it takes you know what I think it is? It takes your ability to transfer that to a different level.
Yeah.
And that's at the end of the day, that's what leadership is all about, right? Is like we're going to tap into other people's gifts and talents and then hopefully allow them to be able to transfer it to other people so that they can,
Yeah.
we're all paying it forward, right? So I do believe that self discovery is priceless and it's not something you go into it. You just like, I got to write a book. My bureau wants me to write a book. Let me get this book knocked out. Right. And so that's how I went into it. And I've come out of it like, oh man, I am so grateful
Yeah.
that they, almost insisted that I write this book because it helped me learn a lot about myself.
Yeah.
And it also, in a good way. And then also you have to be very vulnerable, right? So there's good things that you're like, oh, this is like, I'm knocking out the park. And then there are things that you're like, ugh, God, I made this horrible mistake, and whatever you do,
Yeah.
don't do this, right? So there is a lot of discovery in that process, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. I think
Yeah.
everybody should. You guys always say everybody's got a book in them, and we've all heard that before, and I'm like, I don't know if that's true, right?
Yeah.
But when you start writing, you're like, oh my God, I think I got a couple books in me. This is awesome.
It's so true. And I think it's like you get 10 years worth of therapy by writing the book.
Yes,
And if it's a
exactly.
business book, you get all of that business coaching as well, because you're
That's
coaching
right.
yourself again and reminding yourself of all
Yes.
these things. So I think it's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
true.
and you know what? That's a really good point too, Melanie, because as leaders, we're all like leading other people.
Mm.
So our cup is being constantly pulled from, but we've got to always go places to get our cup full,
Yeah.
right? Or refilled or some deposits. And so that's the great way you've worded it, because that's where the book actually helps the person who's usually, whose cup is usually being, happen to people have to take from it.
Yeah.
This, when you write in the book, it's a way to replenish your own cup
Yeah.
with your own stories, your own history, your own successes, your own failure. And so you're making your own little, healthy pot of stew, if you will,
Yeah.
which is nice.
So it's
Mhm.
self-rewarding from what I hear you saying, and it's rewarding that you're giving it and sharing it with the world, that you can change somebody else's life of what they're
Yeah.
doing. And they don't even have to see you. And a book lives forever,
Yes.
which I love. You're now going to have a legacy that will be passed on even when you're not here anymore, that your message can
Yes.
be cemented in and always have that legacy. Tell people where they can find you, Stephanie.
Sure, absolutely. So you can go to stephaniechung.com, and that will tell you anything from whether it's speaking or books or, any products that I have, as well as I'm on all the social media channels, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. And my call handles are at the Stephanie Chung.
Terrific. So make sure you pick up the book, Allied Leadership, How to Lead People Who Are Not Like You. It's a fantastic book, and Stephanie is just super fantastic. And catch her if you can, if you're lucky enough to hear her speak in person. So thanks, Stephanie, for stopping by. And if you're looking to write a book, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com, and we'll see if we're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great week. Everybody keep writing. Talk to you soon.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.